But
yes.
Rashawn, I'm sure you know Rashawn. She's actually traveling right now. She's in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
So usually she's here for this, but when each of us are out of town, it kind of makes it tough to kind of like stop doing what you're doing and record. And I don't want to not get the episode, so we're gonna push through.
All good, my brother. All good.
You're based out of what part of the country again?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yep. How about you? You're in LA, right?
Yeah, Southern California.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to get out of here though, man. It's different. I was in Atlanta last 4 days, and then you get back here and it's like, it's just different, man.
Yeah, man.
It's different. It's like now I'm like one of the only again. So you go from being in a sea of everybody who's doing it to now, yeah, I'm in the office and doing all these things, but nobody looks like me.
Yeah,
so they make sure you feel it a little bit.
It's something special down there in Atlanta for sure. I mean, Atlanta's only like 3.5 hours from me, so I have an office down there for one of my businesses, so I go down there, a good bit. But yeah, man, I'm cool with all those guys, man. Dave Shans, all the guys that did the conference, man. It's dope to see how they collaborate down there, man. I love that. I love that energy.
But it seems like North Carolina has a little bit of that too, though, right?
Yeah, a little bit for sure. I just think that we just got to own it, man. I feel like there's a lot of people like in pockets doing their thing, but I feel like they're just not owning their lane. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we just like Atlanta's loud with it in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Like, what Atlanta's doing. I feel like it's some quiet money here in Charlotte, which isn't bad, but I just think from a representation standpoint, it's critical to let people know like what you got going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
dope. Cool. So we'll get into it. I'm not going to keep you long. Maybe like 45 minutes.
Ooh.
Get in and out. If I don't talk about anything, feel free to kind of like, you can bring it up because I don't want to miss anything. You have a lot of things going on outside of, you have a lot of things going on. So I want to talk about your story. I want to talk about all that, but also any like projects you're working on. So
cool. Yeah. And I will, I want to return the favor as well. I'm actually launching a new podcast because I'll talk about it on this podcast, but I want to have you on the show as well. So I'll make sure I send the invite.
We make that happen. So let me see if I can get this mic to work one more time. I don't know why I didn't do it, but I know it's going to make a difference because your audio sounds crispy, man. I don't know what it is. Can you hear me on this? Or that's.
I can hear you. I'm not sure if it's switched or not, but I can hear you. Nah, I can't hear you now. I'm not sure why I don't want to connect for you.
All right, we're gonna kick it off. I have my notes. There it is. So I don't even know how to pronounce your last name, man.
Nah, most people don't. It's all good. It's Acheampong.
Acheampong. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So this is the Oglesby and Scott Show. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, founder of the Todd Capital Investment Club, the Todd Capital Options Community. And we've been doing a lot of really cool things. Just got back from the Circle of CEOs conference, which was, in my opinion, a life-changing experience. It was packed wall to wall, about 3,000 people in there. Just dynamic people looking to start their business, grow their business, and hit crazy numbers. So if you guys didn't get a chance to check out that conference, make sure you go to the next one because they're already planning for 2022. If you can you can actually get your tickets on sale if you go early. So the CEO level tickets that were like $3,000 this year, you can get them for $1,000 if you get ahead of the game. But with us today, we have a special guest. He goes by the name George Acheampong. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He is a wealth advisor, you're a wealth advisor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like you do a lot of different things. But you have a super dynamic presence on the internet. I've been following you, getting a lot of value from your content, as are a ton of other people. So we wanted to bring you on the show and hopefully get to know your brand and what you're building a little bit better. So welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
So who are you and where are you from?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm George Acheampong. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, but I don't say it too often because I was only there for about a year. My wife always thinks I'm trying to rep up north whenever I mention that I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. So I claim Charlotte. I've been in the financial services industry for the past decade. Started out on the life insurance side of things. Crushed it, kind of skinned my teeth, learned a lot about the business. Then ultimately evolved into the registered investment advisory space. Wanted to really offer a more robust service model to my clients because I thought I was a financial advisor when I was selling insurance. At least that's what they told me. So I kind of evolved the business and then, got that entrepreneur itch. I already had it being 100% commission, insurance agent. And I started to understand, what it looks like to be a practitioner and then also a business owner, because that's a fundamental difference that I think a lot of people don't understand. It's one thing to be good at what you do. It's another thing to build a business, right? And so I started to kind of learn the difference between those two things. And to your point, the reason why my presence is dynamic online is because I finally got to the point where I had enough back-end infrastructure to where I don't have to be doing all of the work behind the scenes, right? Now, I still get my hands dirty. I don't want to make it seem like, I'm Mr. Hands off and everything is passive, right? Nothing. I don't want to proclaim that, but I've done a reasonable job with creating infrastructure behind the scenes for my bread and butter business so that I can dabble and explore and, and do some of the other things that I'm passionate about. So I guess fast forward to now, talk about a couple of things I have going on. So I have, as I mentioned, my registered investment advisory firm, Capitalwize. We essentially become the financial CEO for our clients. And what that essentially means is we understand that there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to financial planning. You got estate planning, business attorneys, you got accounting, you got tax planning, you got investment advisory. And so one of our core services is helping lead, direct, and coordinate that entire advisory team so that all those financial puzzle pieces actually fit together, right? It's one thing to get a paper financial plan that sounds good. It's another thing to implement that plan. The analogy I like to use is, if I was an architect, I essentially hand you the blueprint, but you still got to go out and find that general contractor and who has to then go out and find the plumber, the drywaller, everybody that's going to do all those things. And so we lead, direct, and coordinate that team so that you can truly, operate from a vantage point of just a bird's eye view and understand exactly what's going on. So that's kind of my flagship business, if you will. Outside of that, I got Melanin Money. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of a passion project of mine that started out as a passion project of mine, but had teamed up with an advertising agency and really realized that people were resonating with the messaging. And so ultimately, have really taken that brand to new levels, which I'm really, really excited about. I got some more things that I'll share as the podcast unfolds. And then last but not least, we have a financial community. So I just like how you have, the options community, we've created a space online for people to, share ideas, get that guidance and financial education that they need at a more, tangible price point. Because obviously working with, an advisor in a one-on-one capacity, it's pretty boutique. And naturally, there's a lot of people that we can't serve through that model. So we wanted to create a space online or online community where we could still serve people at scale. So that's what it is at a high level. Other than that, I'm a habitual investor. I'm always looking for investment plays. So I resonate a lot with your content. I see the truck game you got going on. I'm getting my first truck this year. I'm gonna figure it out. Like you said, get the truck, figure it out later. I got about 6 angel investment startups under my belt. So hoping at least one of those, go crazy for me. And yeah, man, just always looking for wealth building plays, man. You know what I'm saying? And building my legacy and, making my last name mean something in this world.
So one question we always ask our guests is, what was life like growing up?
Yeah. So growing up, man, I primarily grew up in a single family household. So my dad's from Ghana, West Africa. My mom is from here. And, funny, we can laugh about it now, but my dad believed in having multiple wives and my mom wasn't quite aware of that, and when they got married. So, it's all good now. It is what it is. But as a result of that, I was here and he was over there. And so for the most part, grew up, in a single family household, which is, a common story for a lot of folks. And with that, I learned a lot about money through lack, right? Through what we didn't have. And I never sought out to be a financial advisor, I just wanted to understand the game so that I could change that narrative, right? And so, growing up, it was all about just, trying to figure out how I could help my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I think one of the first things I did when I got money from cutting grass was buy our first microwave. You know what I'm saying? That and a couple Power Rangers. So I've always had this knack for wanting to understand finances because I understood that the lack of resources was probably the reason why we were experiencing some of the circumstance we were experiencing. I think what really stuck out to me was one Christmas, and I wanted the PS1, I guess the original PlayStation. They didn't call it PS1, the original PlayStation. And I was asking her all year long, like, Mom, am I gonna get that PlayStation? Am I gonna get that PlayStation? And she never said no. And then Christmas time came around, and I, in my imagination, saw a box that looked like it might be that PlayStation. And I opened that box, and it was not the PlayStation. It was tube socks. And at that point, I said, I got to go and get it. And I was like, God, I was like 13, no, probably younger than that, probably 12 or something. And I was like, at that moment, I knew that if you want something in this world, you got to go and get it. And I never stopped working since. Washing cars, working for Lazy Boy Furniture, bagging groceries at the grocery store, working at a shoe store, Foot Action, working at Coca-Cola, which was my last job in 2010. Haven't had a job since. And now we're here.
It's funny because I can relate to the Christmas story. Like, for me, Christmas is like you have these big dreams. You're like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And I mean, I think sometimes our parents, maybe in that moment, they weren't able to do it for us, but it kind of created that burning fire in your belly to go get it. I definitely can relate.
Yeah, man.
So you had some early business before you got into investment advising?
Yeah. So after my first business, so actually when I was in college, I started this like mini consulting agency, right? So like I used to go to parties, and I felt like there was a lot of money in the party scene. This is before I understood like promoting and things of that nature. And so like there were guys who were coming out of town. I went to school in a college town, went to UNC Greensboro. So there were a lot of like colleges in that town. And so you have people come from out of town wanting to like throw parties, understand what the landscape was like. And so basically what I now know as arbitrage, I kind of was the middleman, right? I was boots on the ground. I knew what was happening in the city. They were trying to come in and make something happen, get connected with establishments. And I basically coordinated those relationships so that they knew they could show up the day of the event and they would have a packed out party. And so that was kind of one of my first businesses that I had. And then before I officially transitioned into being a financial advisor, I started out selling insurance, life insurance, disability insurance. And that was one of the greatest starts in my career. Because I always tell people, if you can sell something that the vast majority of people probably won't benefit from in their lifetime, and you can get them to sign on the dotted line, you probably can sell just about anything. Now, granted, there's whole life insurance, and I won't get into the nuances of that, but you can leverage that while you're living. But by and large, most people, the core of insurance is to leave a legacy, to make sure that you're covered when you're no longer here. And you can learn how to sell that to people in a society where people want instant gratification. I'm certain you can sell just about anything. And so sold life insurance, and then ultimately transitioned into being, an investment advisor.
Nice. So you mentioned that you went to college. What was college life like?
College was fun, man. College was fun. So yeah, I mean, in college, I built a lot of relationships. I pledged a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. So got a lot of lifelong brothers, through that organization. And it taught me a lot about just like making connections. I think I had a few hustles in college. I mean, it's all a blur now. I know I did I sold Lacoste shirts. I'm pretty sure they weren't real, but I bought Lacoste shirts off eBay and then sold them in college. That was another one of my hustles. So I've always, again, you don't realize until you zoom out and look back, but I've always kind of had this knack for just like, how can I get something at one price, or how can I provide a service and ultimately create a margin? And that's just business 101, which is why I created a quick little course on that. Like literally, if you have no skills, right? If you have no skills, but if you have the ability to connect the person who has the financial resources that want to buy something and connect the person who has the technical know-how to deliver that, you can make money, right? I literally created a whole business about 3 years ago just to test it. I sold the business, but just to test the theory. I created a social media marketing agency. I don't know the first thing about video editing, right? I'm definitely not managing nobody's Instagram or social media account. I just knew that if I could reach out to businesses, help them realize that they were probably leaving money on the table because they weren't leveraging social media and their website was trash. And I could find a practitioner who was willing to manage social media, edit the videos, that I could create a margin for myself. It was the easiest money I ever made. My first client was Athlete's Foot, right? Easiest money I ever made. And I just wanted to prove a theory. I'm the type of person, I don't like to talk about stuff that I haven't done, right? I don't mind sharing information and sharing my journey for things I'm personally exploring. But until I've gotten results myself, I don't really want to teach it or educate people on it because there's so many nuances. You know this firsthand, right? There's so many nuances that things that you could only know if you either have a really good mentor or if you personally experience the trials and tribulations, right? I know you own real estate, you own a trucking business now, so you know firsthand, you gotta be in the trenches. You gotta know what it is because you start teaching theory and then someone gets into it. Well, what happens when this happens? Well, shit, I can't tell you. Because I just saw it on the internet and I wanted to package it up and sell it. Right. So I'm really big on that because I think the digital information space is one of the best things that's happened to our culture. But at the same token, what happens is people you get one little result and they create a whole course and a brand around it, right? Not realizing that there's nuances, there's levels. And when it's one thing to do it for yourself, it's another thing to be able to account for the challenges and that people are going to experience, probably, which is why you created the community surrounding your course, right? Because there's so many variables. What worked for me might not work for you. And we need to make sure that we have a broad enough ecosystem that can account for these challenges that you might experience. Because if not, you might go and lose your shirt. And so I'm just really big on not preaching theory and I'll share the game, but I'm not going to teach it or sell it till I've done it.
So as an FA, what did the early years of being a financial advisor look like for you?
A lot of handshaking, a lot of networking, a lot of relationship building. You know, you got to figure, I started when I was 23. So, I had just left, Coca-Cola as a glorified intern at the time. And, the first thing they tell you is to go out to your existing network, right? Now, I'm not selling vacuums. I'm asking people to invest their life savings with me. So I was young enough, but smart enough to know it's not too many people I can go with in my circle and say, hey, I'm a financial advisor now. You want me to manage your money? So they gave me this thing called Project 200. And it's like basically write down a list of 200 people that you know that you want to try to make clients. And again, I won't proclaim the genius now, but something told me, don't try to sell those people. Try to connect with those people and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing now. You seem like the type of person who might be connected to people who could find value in this service. Do you think you can make some introductions for me? And two beautiful things happened when I took that approach. Number one, their guard was down because I wasn't trying to sell them, right? So they were like, man, this young kid believes that I'm this person who can connect them. I want to help. So their guard got down. So it ended up happening about the end of the conversation. 30% of those people actually did want to do business with me because their guard was down. The second thing is everybody likes to be the plug. Everybody likes to think that they can connect somebody. So when I edified them, say, hey, I know you probably got it all figured out. I know they didn't. I know you probably got it all figured out. So I'm not asking you to be a client, but I know there's people that in your network that probably I could be a resource to. And they, was smelling themselves and connected me to a bunch of great people. And that propelled me before this digital marketing wave and advertising and all that stuff. It propelled me to be able to get connected with a lot of great people in the business. So while it started out a little challenging, I was able to tap into key relationships early by not trying to sell everybody I came across and try to build real relationships and ultimately have them connect me with people. And that worked well. Because I always think about like the network marketing space, which I don't have anything negative to say, but one of the challenges with their industry is like when you see them call, it's like, damn, I don't want to pick up the phone because they're probably going to try to sell me another lotion, potion or something and they're not building relationships. And so I knew how that felt. And I didn't want to be that guy that when I called someone, the only thing they thought I wanted from them was to make them a client. And so relationship building was key. The other thing that was key is keeping my highs low and my lows high. Because when you're in 100% commission environment or just an entrepreneurial environment, you're gonna have months where you just run it up, right? But it might not always be like that. And the one thing that can keep you on an even playing field is that when you have those really great months, you treat it like nothing happened. When you have those really low months, subsequently, because of that, you can treat it like nothing happens. And that was key for me because when I first started out, I remember like it was yesterday, I got my first real check. I think I got like 18 bands. I was like, yo, like I'm 24 years old, 18 bands at 24, no real bills. I went back to because I was only a year removed from college at that time, or 23. I was like a year and a half removed from college, still had some buddies that were still living in that town. I went back, I was buying drinks for everybody. You know what I'm saying? I was like, put your mans on, he's looking bad. You know what I'm saying? I was out here blowing it, you know what I'm saying? And I learned quickly that next month when it was more like $18 than it was 18,000. And so it taught me to keep my highs low and my lows high, because that always also puts you in a position to where you never have to worry about going back to the job, right? The pressure of going back to the job is when you don't have money in the bank, right? You keep your cash reserves high because you're not out here trying to stunt for the gram. At the time, the gram wasn't even popping, but you're not trying to stunt. You know what I'm saying? Then you're gonna be straight, right? You're gonna be straight. And so that's kind of what really helped me out in the early days of being a financial advisor / entrepreneur.
So you did that, and you ultimately scaled it into what you have now. So can we kind of dig into the details of what that business looks like now? Do you have advisors that work for you? Do you have staff? Do you have marketing? How does that look?
Yeah, man. So, through several years of just like understanding what I wanted my life to look like, and subsequently what the business would have to look like as a result of it, we started building out the business piece by piece. So our first hire was a client services manager who also served as basically my executive assistant. So, and that's typically most people. Your first hire is your catch-all. It's like, whatever I don't have the capacity or desire to do, you do that plus whatever else, right? So that was my first hire. So she helps really service the clients from a like non-advisory capacity. So customer service, if they got questions, paperwork, all that good stuff, right? That was the first hire. And I was still in the practitioner role of delivering the financial plans. Then my next hire was another advisor. So I hired another CFP who could actually be qualified enough to deliver the plan. So then I could focus mainly on sales and shaking the trees and getting people to come through the door, knowing that I had support to actually deliver on the financial plan. Then we have a total of 3 advisors, 1 client services manager, and we are about to bring on a chief investment officer. Right. So that's essentially what the business looks like now. Our business model is broken up into 2 primary pillars. Number 1 is the financial planning, or you could say consulting side of the business, right? And that's where we charge a fee for service, like I talked about in the beginning of the podcast, to be our client's financial CEO. And that honestly is our bread and butter. We have a decent amount of AUM, but what I saw a trend in the industry is 2 things. 1, due to the disruption and access to financial education, there's becoming the idea of investing is becoming a lot more democratized, right? And so for me, I know I will always have clients who never want to get their hands dirty and never want to invest their money for themselves. However, I also knew that I needed to create a model that if the big, brokers ever decided, hey, look, we strictly want to go direct to consumer and we don't need you as an RIA, that I wasn't solely reliant upon that line of business, and I'm relying upon what I can control. Because while clients might say, hey, let me go throw my money in an ETF, they're never going to say, hey, George, can you help me navigate all of these life changes? They're never going to say that, right? So even though that is an integral part of our business today, we over-index on the planning, because if a client ever says, hey, I think I can do this part of my own, great, we're okay. And I just saw that shift starting to happen, and I didn't want to be beholden to that. One thing I like to do when I was doing consulting about 7 years ago, I did some outsourced consulting for Wells Fargo. They had this process called single point of failure. And basically the job was to identify vulnerabilities in the business and intentionally create a mechanism to solve for it before it ever could possibly happen. And so I kind of took, that literally was the job. It was like single point, like the whole, almost like how you hear about like tech companies saying they hire hackers, right? Same thing, right? It's like, what could disrupt our business? What could be a single point of failure, right? Is it our payment processor? Is it where you're hosting your options community, they decide they go out of business because they're doing some shady shit you didn't know they were doing? Like, what is a single point of failure, and how would I solve for that if it happened tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's something that I've kind of deployed in my own business, is like poking holes, like where are those vulnerabilities, and actually creating a plan, like not just making it theory. Like it's literally Launchpad. Is that who you use for the community?
Yeah.
Launchpad, something crazy, you don't know, they go bankrupt and you have thousands of subscriptions on that platform. What happens tomorrow to that business?
Income goes to zero.
Right. And so it's like thinking about that, like what are the things I can put in place?
Right.
Prospect that happens, that I'm not anyways, that's a tangent. More of the story is those are 2 pillars of our business that drive all of our revenue. Now, outside of that, obviously we have like our campaigns, right? So someone who wants to invest, there might be different aspects of what matter to them. For example, if someone's transitioning out of a career or they lost their job, we might have a no 401k left behind campaign, right? Where it's like, hey, you got this money over here, blah, blah, blah. So we have like 7 different campaigns for one revenue stream, right? And so we only have 2 core revenue streams, but we have several campaigns that speak specifically to people that could essentially benefit from the services that we have to offer.
Yeah. And so the CEO, where you become somebody's financial CEO, how involved do you become in their finances? Is it more like directing them, or do you really get in there and set up the accounts, pay the bills, do all that stuff? To what level of involvement are you guys engaged in?
Yeah, we recently just opened the athletes division, so I won't be, but they will be doing the bill pay thing. But traditionally, with our service, so we do open the accounts. We do manage the entire financial plan. We know more about them than their mother probably does. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, right? So we know everything we get into the weeds on a cash flow basis, from a debt management basis, investment advisory basis, estate planning. We coordinate that relationship. We coordinate the relationship with the CPA and the tax planner. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. And we basically are gathering all of the information on the front end so that we can have a bird's eye view of how these dots should connect. And effectively, the way it works in a great scenario is we're able to sit on the same side of the table as the client, so that when we do bring in the CPA, the estate planning attorney, the client's not having to guess what type of questions they should be asking, or they're not having to guess if the estate planning attorney is actually implementing the recommendations that we provided. You see what I'm saying? So like we're effectively sitting on the same side of the table as them to make sure that the strategy that we recommend is actually being deployed. I think the greatest example of this is like an affordable family office, if you will, right? Because I know our culture doesn't meet the asset minimums to hire a family office, but we do have a lot of high income earners. They might not have a lot of liquid AUM, but we are seeing people making 6, 7, and even approaching 8 figures in revenue, right? So there's enough clay to mold. And so instead of focusing on the assets to pay us, we say, hey, look, here's the consulting fee that it's going to take to be able to construct and design this. And that's essentially how we're able to effectively have a service model that is as robust as if you were working with a family office, but much more affordable, because you had to have, probably north of 50 million to actually hire a true family office.
Yeah. And so that's what I was going to ask you next is, what are the fees to work with you do you have different tiers? What does that look like?
Yeah. So if our bread and butter is like entrepreneurs, just because like I have so much deep knowledge myself from my own experiences that I've applied that to our service model. But we do have advisors that work with working professionals and executives and things of that nature. So if you're a working professional, there's 2 tiers, either individuals or couples. It's $10,000. It starts at $10,000 a year for an individual. It starts at $12K a year for a couple. On the entrepreneur side, it's a lot more involved. It's literally like we're an outsourced part of your staff. And so it starts at 20,000 and goes up to 60,000 a year. But again, when you factor in all of what we're doing for our clients, I've never had a client say that they feel like they're not getting their money's worth. I actually had a client 2 weeks ago that when I asked her how much did she think it was going to cost once I told her the price, she told me, I thought it was going to be 4 times that for what you guys are providing. I was like, damn, well, thanks for telling me now. What I'm saying? I was like, the price went up for the next people. But now that's at a high level. That's what how our service model is structured. And we really just help connect the dots and really make sure that balls don't get dropped. Because at the end of the day, you can get a pretty financial plan. It can be mapped out to the T. The question is, do you have the right team to implement and deploy that strategy? I mean, I've seen the savviest tax and trust and estate strategies on the internet that we're sharing that I think is important to share. But the question is, who's actually implementing that, right? Is it actually being implemented the way it needs to be implemented? And that's where we come in, is making sure that it happens. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like sometimes your job is to protect people from themselves?
Probably 90% of it. Yeah, probably 90% of it. Because I work with smart people. I mean, if you can figure out how to get out here, make a name for yourself, and generate 6, 7, 8 figures, like you're a smart person, right? You like that. So that's not the issue. The problem is, again, which is why I said I deployed and infused a lot of my own experience, is helping them focus, right? Like, when can we I'm never going to stifle my clients, because that would be contradictory to how I move, right? I invested it all. I want it all, right? But what we do is we have our clients create what we call a wealthy declaration. And essentially what that is that is the North Star for what we say yes to, why we say yes to it, and does it align with what our end game is, which means we have to define what that is. How do we define happiness? How do we define legacy? How do we define wealth? How do we define freedom? That's all the ingredients of how we create this wealthy declaration. So when they come to me with an investment opportunity, should I do this? Should I not do it? Does it make sense? We are using that as a North Star, right? Because sometimes it's not just about the ROI. It's about what are the intangibles that are going to be impacted. Like you think it's passive, then it's not. Now you're knee deep in it. You got a newborn, wife's mad at you. So we got to really make sure, do these things align, as a part of the strategy? Because again, these are things that I've experienced myself, and I have the context from my own experience and my clients to make sure that we're not making decisions solely based on ROI, but we're also making decisions based upon time freedom, based upon peace of mind, based upon happiness, and however you measure what being wealthy means to you.
Yeah. Would you say that this is your most successful business, or have you had some other ventures that we don't know about that you've bought and sold or just sold out?
Man, that's a great question. It's my second most successful business. Believe it or not, man. So like, obviously when I exit out of 1 or 2 of the angel investments, I mean, those are going to trump everything that I've ever done. But the e-commerce business, man, it surprised me. It surprised the heck out of me, man. I'm like, whoa, like what's going on here, man? Like, so funny story, end of last year. So I've had Melanin Money since 2017. And again, originally, because I'm a financial advisor, wealth equality advocate for the culture, this was just like, if I'm gonna be wearing clothes anyway, let me put some statements on a shirt. It'll create conversation. Maybe I'll sell some, right? People started catching on to it. People started thinking that was the firm and that was the primary brand. I was like, okay, maybe we have something here. So then I started putting a little more energy, a little more effort towards it. And then I finally pulled the trigger last year. Like I didn't run ads for real until last year. It was a pandemic. I said, I'm going to be just like everybody else, be agile and not assume that I'm going to just be able to weather the storm. But as we know, the pandemic, as you like to say, turned into a bandemic, right? And it was, you know what I'm saying? So pulled the trigger on ads and ambassadors and all that, bro. And that e-commerce business, it grew 2,300% overnight. And this is after we missed Black Friday. We started running ads like beginning of December, 2,300% overnight. So much so I had to turn ads off in March and April of this year to stabilize operations, right? And what it did is it gave me I was never the person to bash a business that they had bad customer service. That just wasn't me. Like, because at the end of the day, like, I know what it's like as an entrepreneur, but I would see online, like people, oh, it's a scam and blah, blah, blah. I get it now, right? Like orders weren't going out fast enough. And I was like, and emails was coming in and we weren't prepared for that level of growth, humbly speaking. And I fully understood what it's like to kind of bust at the seams and just not have everything all figured out. And I'm humble about that. I don't mind sharing that because I just did not anticipate that. And so we stabilized operations, actually turned ads off, found vendors, found suppliers, found outsourced fulfillment, but there wasn't drop shipping, so I could still have great margins. Did all that and just like banged it out in 60 days. And now as of this week, we turned ads back on to turn it up again. But man, it's crazy what this brand is doing, man. Like, and the things that we have in store, Right now we're just selling, t-shirts and crew necks and stuff like that. But we're going to turn it into a whole lifestyle brand. It's going to be nuts, bro.
Yeah.
So
e-com is definitely powerful. I learned that e-com was powerful from King Ashley Ann when I saw the numbers that she was doing. Yeah. And it just kind of clicked. I was like, everybody has a cell phone, so everybody has your store in their hand. You don't have to go buy the real estate. You don't have to go to the most prime market. Before, you had to do that. And if you wanted to open up a shop, you had to actually like get the lease, build it out, get the inventory, hire the sales staff. Now it's just like, set up a website, run some ads. Speaking of ads, what are some tips that you would give to people for running successful ads?
Yeah, I'm keeping it a buck with you. I hired an agency. I focus on my zone of genius.
Right. And so the agency, what do they do for you? Because that's really smart. And that's one of the things I'm looking to do is offload that task. I'm still trying to do my own ad agency. So what do? They do all the graphics, they do all the everything.
Yeah, so it depends on like what package you sign up for. Because some of them are going to just do the ads and they're going to tell you, hey, we need this kind of creative. If you can provide it for us, we'll find the audiences, we'll do all that. My agency that I just started working with, shout out to Scale Bold, I can introduce you if you want me to. They now do it all. They offer a user-generated content package, SMS, email automation flows, of course, all the Facebook, Instagram, and now Google ads. And now that I'm about to roll up my podcast ecosystem into the Melanin Money Brand, YouTube, right? So you probably won't ever, unless I'm going to put on a suit, you won't ever see me in casual wear that's probably not mine. Or if I'm just like supporting another like small Black-owned business who's doing the same thing, because it just doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, you're rocking the Circle of CEO shirt, right? So I'm pretty sure if I went to the conference, I would have grabbed one as well. So if it ain't somebody that I have context to, that's a peer of mine, that's like winning, you know what I'm saying? Outside of that, it's going to be my merch. And then of course I still got to go get the suits. You know what I'm saying? You got to go get the suits. That's never changing. Maybe one day I do the suit. Now, that's not on my radar for the foreseeable future. Maybe one day. But I got to go get the suits. Other than that, that's it, man.
You mentioned angel investing, and I don't think a lot of people in here know what that is. Can you break that down for the listeners?
Yeah. So angel investing is where typically when you think about like startups, right, they have what's called a friends and family round, right? So that's like before they go to the public, they go to, or before they go VC, I should say, they go to friends and family who have the ability to stroke a check. Now, you have to be an accredited investor to do so. And all that means is that you have over $1 million in net worth, or you make over $250,000 as an individual. And if you're an accredited investor, then you can get into these deals. Now, the beauty of the internet is that has changed a little bit, and you can get into some of these deals through like crowdfunding. But as an angel investor, what I'm able to do is if I get, and the biggest thing is putting yourself out there, because it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're not seen as an angel investor, if you're not in the ecosystem, those deals aren't going to come your way. So if you meet that criteria, put yourself out there, let it be known that this is what I'm looking for. And so I'm able to take my own money and bet on companies, really bet on founders, because the company ultimately is going to pivot, that I believe have a true opportunity to scale to major heights. And I get into that company before they go public or get acquired by a larger company, because you can win either way, either an exit through acquisition or an exit through IPO. And an exit through acquisition is probably more typical. Going public is tough. But if you think it's big enough, you're making enough noise to get acquired by a larger business, that's not a bad day too. So I have 6 of those under my belt. Actually, Popcom is one of them. I got into them before the crowdfunding round. Who else did I get in? Streamlytics, got into them. A gaming company called DVM. So yeah, angel investing, if you have a portion of your capital that you're willing to potentially lose 100% of, right. but have the chance to get a 2,000% plus return, then angel investing can be a good play. It's definitely not something you should start with if you're just getting started in the market or don't have an emergency fund. But as you continue to build the layers of your foundation when it comes to wealth building, like definitely keep that on your radar, because it's worth the risk, right? Like out of the 6 that I have, I'm expecting 1 to 2 to really do some damage. I'm okay with it if the other 4 don't. I won't tell them that, right. But I'm okay if the other 4 don't do anything.
And that's the game. You have to enter multiple investments, because that one that does win is going to win so big that you're going to not only make enough money that it's a happy day, but you're also going to make back the money that you lost in the other ventures.
Facts.
So it's a game of numbers.
Facts.
What are you looking for in a company that you're going to invest in? Because there might be somebody listening who wants to get some funding from an angel.
Yeah, I'm looking for someone who is trying to disrupt a legacy market and has the grit and the fortitude to pivot when things change, not if they change, when things change. And the reason why I'm specifically focused on people who are trying to disrupt the legacy market is because it's the best of both worlds. You're not trying to pioneer, because every founder says, no, it's never been done before. Even if it hasn't, I don't want to invest in it, probably, right? But if you're disrupting a legacy market, then that means the infrastructure is there, and it can just simply be a transfer of energy to what you're building that's maybe more efficient or just a better model, right? So, for example, John Henry is disrupting the insurance world, right? Airbnb disrupted the hotel industry, right? So, like, I'm looking for founders who have a real chance at disrupting legacy markets who have gotten comfortable, right? And that's what I essentially look for. Now, if I do see some standout innovation, it's like, man, I can see like you have the foresight of where the world is going. I'll make a bet on some of those. Like if someone has like a really dope like Internet of Things like business or something, like yeah, I might take a chance on that. But like my bread and butter are businesses who are disrupting legacy markets.
Yeah, that's where the big bread is made. Let's talk about Pocket Advisor.
Yeah.
It's a social network for melanin millionaires. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, man. So, going back to just to make it full circle. So when I first started my business, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was trying to be all things to all people, right? Especially when you're in a service-based business, you have to charge your worth, as they say, not because, you're the best things in sliced bread, but because you have to create enough margin to be able to hire the best people to provide the best service, right? When I first started, I didn't have that context. And so I had, I was charging people $99 a month to be their financial advisor. I was like, well, I didn't know any better, right? And believe it or not, that wasn't even at the bottom, right? There were some people charging less than that. And so as I actually started to build out business infrastructure, I'm like, I still have the heart to serve and impact these people, but I can't do it in this way, right? It's just not going to make sense for me. And I'm not going to be around. I'm going to be burnt out. So I'm going to have to work with 500 people for this to make sense. Right. So when I started to realize that, I restructured my financial planning firm and said, what is a way that I can still serve people at scale, provide them quality access to financial information, but do it in a way that's equitable for me and makes sense for them as well. And that's how Pocket Advisor emerged. And so, essentially at its infancy, the goal of Pocket Advisor is to connect people with quality financial experts, right? So that they can ask those questions that they ordinarily would have to hire somebody for, right? So I'm going to be going on an all-out assault to, have the best and brightest, financial educators willing to share their time, because again, now they can carve out an opportunity to where it can make sense for them. They can still serve their boutique clients, but now they can have a subscription business to where, they can still be a resource to those people as well, because they have a strong affiliate program as well. So that's essentially what Pocket Advisor is. Now, my goal is to evolve the platform to take all the data that I'm getting from the questions that people are asking, the commonalities that they have, and ultimately create an algorithm called Axe Penny that effectively is like Alexa, but specifically for personal finance, right? So this is just step one. I want to gather as much data as I possibly, real data, which is why we're doing the unscalable thing of having real people answer those questions, right? So that we can gather that real data, not make assumptions, but gather that real data, at least 100,000 data points over the next 24 months, and then take that and ultimately build out an algorithm called Axe Penny that will then act as a software as a service business, which will then allow me to position that at a 7x multiple if I decide I ever want to sell it. Because financial education and education platform, I probably can get up to 3x multiple if I position it really well. I can get a little more if there's like a lot of brand equity. But a SaaS business model, I know I can get 7 to maybe even 13x if I ever want to sell. So that's what Pocket Advisor is today. That's what it is tomorrow. Of course, there's a few steps in between, but that's effectively what it is.
Do you hear that? The guy cutting the leaves back there?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe it's not going to catch it all the way there. Yeah, it's like right next to the window.
Yeah, I feel like that's what they be doing in my spot too sometimes. Like, you pick today when I was recording to want to trim the hedges.
Right. Let me see. So I'm going to close it out, but he's like right there. Almost done, bro. Yeah, I gotta hire that ad company. I think it's gonna take it to the next level because then you're dealing with people. That's all they do.
That's all they do,
get
bro.
Sales. Yeah. So it's
yeah,
like,
I tried like the same, just like you, man. I dabbled, I played around with it. We got some sales that came in, but like literally their only job is to optimize and to win. And you actually want to work with the company. Like originally they were just charging me a flat fee. Then they transitioned to a flat fee plus a small percentage. But you actually want that because now they're tied to the bottom line. Right. They're tied to the bottom line. Like now I know they have an incentive to go win.
I'd rather it that way than the other way. Because it's like, I don't want you just to see it as a job and you're just doing it. It's like, nah, like if I don't get results, I can't pay you. So
exactly. Like I probably will get to a point where I maybe hire somebody in-house to do it. Like, especially as the revenue continues to tick up, because that 6%, like it's going to start to mean a lot more as we continue to grow. So at some point I will bring it in-house. I would never do it myself, but I will bring it in-house just because of it takes a lot, especially with iOS 14 now and Facebook is always changing. It's very naive to think that you can keep up with that and all the other stuff that you have to do business-wise. So I just outsourced it.
So the last question I wanted to ask you is, you said you left the job in 2020 or 2010 and you haven't had a job since. What did you do to leave the job and what have you done to stay away from the job?
Yeah. Well, for context, when I left the job, I mean, I was 23, didn't have a ton of responsibilities. I could afford to take that risk. And I really didn't know what I didn't know. Right. So I'll give you the perspective of what I actually did versus what I would do with what I now know. So what I did, I didn't have much savings. I just literally had to go out and make it happen because the way it was positioned to me was like, you can make unlimited income potential, which is true, but there's so many other variables that they didn't share. So what I did to leave is I just left. I didn't have a ton of savings. I kind of had to leave because the job that I had, at the time was kind of phasing out. And so I had to make it work, So like I saw a clip, Neo said it has to work or it has to work, you know what I'm saying? So that was my situation. But for anybody who's listening right now, what I would encourage you to do is first thing I would do is I would humble my lifestyle. If you have gotten kind of high on the hog and you're comfortable, you're living fat because you got this guaranteed paycheck that we saw in the pandemic ain't so guaranteed, I would scale back the lifestyle temporarily because that's going to give you the wiggle room to not have to put so much pressure on your passion or whatever it is you're about to do, because you will start to resent your business if it's not producing at the level you need it to produce at and you need that money to live, right? And then you'll start resenting the thing that you once thought you loved. So humble your lifestyle temporarily if you can. Try to get at least 6 months worth of your living expenses saved. And now I know this might not be something that everybody can do, but if you can try to get a nice cushion of living expenses so that as the income is fluctuating, you have money that you can potentially use to offset it. And honestly, 6 months ain't really even a lot, to be honest with you. But try to have at least that. And then try to build a pipeline, right? So for whatever it is that you're trying to do, try to at least see whether you hit that target or not. Try to create a pipeline so that you can at least forecast, like, what can I reasonably expect to happen the moment that I step away from this, right? Have you consistently at least made, like, people focus on 6 figures so much, have you made $1,000 consistently each month, right? Like, hit a target, find a target, and then try to build up a pipeline or some type of forecast so that you can see some level of predictability. The best businesses in the world, they're forecasted out for 2 and 3 years, right? You mean to tell me you don't know what's going to happen in the next 90 days, right? So try to create some level of forecast. And I'm not saying you got to get fancy, but just look at your opportunities that are in front of you. What can I sell? What do I intend to sell? How do I plan to sell it? And start to wrap your head around a number that you think you can actually hit. Once you feel good about those three mechanisms, make the leap, because it's never going to be a perfect time, right? Even if you have all the money in the bank, even if you're single with no kids, there's never going to be a perfect time. So just make the leap, try to make the leap with, some reasonable foresight. But that's the advice I would give. Now, how do I stay here is by not trying to impress y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot that I could do that I don't do. Let's just say that. And not that I won't ever do it. I love it all. I love the fancy suits, and I have some. I love the nice cars. I love to stay in the nicest places when I travel. You best believe it. However, I'm going to do it in a way to where I feel like the worst feeling is getting a taste of it and then having to go back. When I do it for real, I ain't never going back. You know what I'm saying? So I've done it because you got to taste it. You got to feel it. You got to get around it. You got to experience it. But when I'm like in it, when it ain't no link in my bio, y'all can't even get in contact with me. I want to put myself in a position where I can never go back. And so the key is just not to like put the cart before the horse. Like all that will be there when you make it. You know what I'm saying? Like drown out the noise of what you see on the internet. All that will be, your time will come. And when it comes, you'll be able to really enjoy it because you're not stressed or stretched too thin because you went out and did something prematurely. And that's how I intend to be indestructible. And also put as much money as you can in assets that produce cash flow or appreciate, right? My business goes bankrupt tomorrow, which it won't. But if it did, if I lost it all, I got assets that's going to pay me. You know what I'm saying? As we having this conversation, I know the portfolio is jumping. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, put as much money as you can in assets, right? Separate your time from the way that you make money. I like to call it no strings attached, right? You know what I'm saying? I am not personally attached to my revenue streams. You know what I'm saying? That's my advice. Like go broke investing.
So that was my last question. My last question, you just reminded me, is what was your most successful investment?
My most successful investment, like just in period, in general?
Yeah, let's do it in general.
Okay. I'm not going to go cliche on you. I'm not going to say
yourself.
Invested in myself, which is true. Not gonna lie to you. That's true. My most successful investment, honestly, I would say, believe it or not, was making the decision to outsource to the ads team. Because what other investment is going to go up 2,300% overnight, right? That was my most. So to paint the quick picture in 45 seconds, it was October of last year. And I said, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Redid the website. That was money. Had to get a merch for photo shoot. That was money. Had to pay the models a little something. That was money. Hired the ads team. That was money. And then had to get my initial ad budget together for the initial run, right? Let's call it 10. Let's round it up. Let's call it 10K, right? They had no clue if any of it was going to work, right? That 10K, as I just so affectionately said, overnight turned into 2,300% and is booming. So my best investment at this point, I would say, was making the decision to hire a team that can get me in front of more people, that's the real bar. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how good your product is. You probably don't need anything new. You just need to get in front of more people. That's it. Whatever you do, get in front of more people. You know, so when I went to the 10X Growth Con and I heard Grant Cardone, say, I thought he was just, it was just market. I just thought it was talk, right? Like, I mean, and not that I didn't believe him. I'm just like, man, why do you spend so much? He talks about spending all his money on marketing and just getting in front of as many people. I get it now. And if you have good customer service, and if you have a suite of products, then guess what? That's why they use the terminology acquire a customer. Because once you spent the money to get them one time, the lifetime value of that customer, as long as you got inventory, regardless what that inventory is, you got something to sell them. Because I might have got them in the Melanin Money merch ecosystem, but then they're going to join the community, right? Then they're going to buy something else from me. Then they're going to buy a course from me, right? And then eventually I might have coached them up so damn good, they want to be a client of mine one day. So what is the lifetime value of a client? But you got to get in front of enough people so that you can acquire a customer. And once you understand what a customer is truly worth to you, which is why it's important to know the data, then you can feel more confident on your ad spend, right? I know what a customer is worth to me. That's my best investment.
Anything I didn't cover that we need to cover? I think we hit the points, but you said you were working on some other projects. That was Pocket advisor, right?
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna give you exclusive, man. I haven't shared this besides like with three people: my wife, my best friend, and the person who's helping me do it. So, as y'all know, I have the merchandise brand, and like I said, I want to step it up and do something different. Because a lot of people have clothing brands now, and I love to see it. I'm gonna buy everybody's stuff. But one thing I haven't really seen done in a real meaningful way, and I don't mind saying this, it's another quick tip: people don't execute. So the reason why I'm going to share this and not worry about someone stealing my idea is because people don't execute. So it doesn't matter. But I am coming up with what I'm calling, I'm going to patent the actual chemical formula, the official scent of Black wealth. I'm coming up with my own fragrance called Equity. I'm really excited about it. That's one of the most exciting things I'm planning to release this year. So it'll start out as a unisex fragrance, right? One that can be comparable for both men and women, but it smells amazing. We've spent a lot of time formulating it. It's quality. We didn't cut corners. And yeah, you know, when people say, damn, well, you smell like money, you can actually say, you know what? Yeah, I do. Actually, this is Equity. So I'm really excited about that, dropping that. The other thing that I'm excited about, sorry about that. The other thing I'm really excited about is because of how powerful and so much attention the Melanin Money brand is getting, I'm actually going to be rolling up my content, like my podcast platform, up into the Melanin Money ecosystem, rebranding that. And believe it or not, actually Pocket Advisor is going to be rolling up into that as well, because I want to make this a household name, right? I want to make it a household name. And so most of what people see me put out there now is going to roll up to that Melanin Money ecosystem. Kind of taking a page out of the Earn Your Leisure Boys book. Shout out to Troy and Rashad. But, you know, unless you have venture funding, I mean, there's plenty of businesses who have like different brands and all that. But like, unless you have like a lot of resources, it's a lot easier just to like penetrate the marketplace by having a household name. And so I'm rolling up a lot of what I'm doing to that ecosystem. And so you're going to see a lot of changes come down the pipeline within the next 2 quarters.
That's dope. That's how you do it. You got to package all the different pieces together to all support that one brand.
Yeah. Man.
Nice. Man, I do have a final 4. It's just a quick in and out. Got to make sure I ask you these questions. The first one is, who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Who's somebody that I look up to and why? You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I hope this doesn't sound cliche. I honestly look to my I think what's so beautiful about what's happening in Black wealth culture, or what they call it, LLC Twitter, is that like it's so many peers that I'm inspired by. I'm like, I love what you're doing with Todd, Todd Capital. I've seen that brand, blow up, and the options square, how many people are getting money off options. And a lot of financial advisors, I be having to check them because they be like, man, like everybody's a financial guru. I'm like, no, like how you should be excited for the fact that our culture is like getting exposed to stuff that they ain't never been exposed to, man. So I'm inspired by people like you. I'm inspired by, the Earn Your Leisure movement. I'm inspired by all those boys down in Atlanta killing it. To be honest with you, like I'm inspired by what I would, like to consider my peers, right? Like y'all are doing some amazing things. It motivates me. It makes it less lonely, especially now that we have the internet, to the point, like maybe you don't feel it in your own city, but at least when you can log online and see people that look like you pushing the narrative forward, and the fact that there's so much space, right? Like there's no need to compete. Like so many of us need this game. So many of us need this support. And a lot of us don't have it. And so to see people like, Wall Street Trapper and all these guys, Ian Dunlap, that's what I'm inspired by. I'm inspired by the people who are giving back. Because to be honest with you, if we're keeping it a buck, when you're a true investor, that's one thing that you really don't need nobody for. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be the biggest introvert if you learn how to master investing. And so the fact that we are deciding voluntarily to, give back to the culture, which is why I hate when people think people are scamming people when they're selling courses. Like, no, we're saving you years, maybe even a decade of time, energy, and experience, and packaging it up in a way that's palatable for you. And yeah, we're going to charge a nominal fee for our time to create that 100%. But like, that's what I'm inspired by, man. I'm inspired by you guys.
Nice. What is your favorite business or real estate book?
Favorite business. I love the book Start With Why. It's an oldie book goodie. Also love Story Brand. I love that book. Those are 2 books that I always recommend that always stand out to me. As far as real estate, most of my real estate has just been like pretty hands-on. I haven't it's not a core component of my wealth building yet. I do have some property in Ghana that I'm excited about based upon location, but I'm about to dive into the multifamily game here domestically. So I probably will have some books that I dive into then. But right now, those are my other two favorite business books.
What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means to me that money is not the primary decision maker when it comes to doing anything I want to do in life. It's always going to be a factor on some level, but it's not the primary factor, right? That's what wealth means to me. And the secondary, I guess, thing that wealth means to me is being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, and being able to leave behind a meaningful legacy so that the people that I care about, the people that I love, don't have to start from ground zero. And so that when I was a kid, I used to get asked the question, if money wasn't an object, what would you do? And I could never really answer that question because money was always an object, right? I want my kids to be able to answer that question one day and have a legitimate answer because money won't be an object, right? Money is just a means to an end. I want that to not be the primary decision maker for the things that I do in this world.
Yeah. I like that. Last question is, what sets apart successful business owners or investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
What separates us? Number one, I would say resiliency, because it's hard for everybody. Everybody thinks like they see you and, all the stuff that you got now or the moves that you made. They don't see the background ills and the pain and the failure of just deciding I'm gonna keep going. I don't have it all figured out. I'm just like you. I'm just trying stuff. Only difference between me and you is I just kept going, right? So resiliency is probably one of the main ingredients. The other one is a big vision, because if you ever start a sentence off with "if I could just," you won't be a successful entrepreneur, because all you're thinking about is if I could just get enough for me to be okay, right? So you have to have a really big vision, because that is what's going to propel you to keep moving forward. If my vision is just to make sure that me and my wife got enough food on the table, I mean, who can't check that box, right? But my vision is mom's got to be straight, future generations got to be straight, the team that I employ got to be straight, right? And that's a whole different ball game, right? When I feel like they're neck and neck, having a child and having employees, in the sense that I know that when that payroll comes, like somebody's family is dependent upon what I do. You know what I'm saying? That's a big enough vision. I got to get up and go get it. They're depending upon what I do. Someone trusted enough to leave another corporation, leave another company to come work for my small intermediate business to support my vision. And they're relying upon me to stroke that check on the 1st and 15th. Right. But if the vision wasn't big enough, and I was just like, it was just me and a VA from the Philippines, and that's pretty easy to give up on or just kind of stay small. So go big. It's going to force you to stay in the game unless you don't have integrity, right? You usually want to fold up shop and disappear. But you have any level of integrity and you go big, you're going to have to stand up. You don't have to be, not to be sexist, whatever. You have to be a man. You got to stand up and show up if you go big enough. So going big is huge, because you're forcing yourself into execution. I hired my first full-time employee before I was ready, because I knew I had to go and get it. Because I knew I would feel like a bad person if I had to go to them one day and say, "Hey, it's rough out here. Hope you figure it out." I'm gonna figure it out. Leaders eat last. I'm gonna figure it out. Make sure my team eats, and that's what keeps me going. Go big and resiliency.
Oh, thank you, brother, for coming on the show. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? And where can they support what you have going on?
Absolutely. So, I'm pretty active on Instagram, George Acheampong Jr. Hopefully they put it in the show notes, because I know you're not gonna be able to spell it on your own. You can find me there. Also, my web designer just finished my my personal brand website that really acts as a hub, so that you ever have any questions about what I do, that's a centralized place to know how to get to everything. And I'm not yet one of the bougie IG people. So if you DM me, if I see it, I'll try to respond. I'm pretty accessible. If you leave a comment, I'll probably see that over a message. But yeah, just tap in. If your MO is to build wealth, become financially free, and live the lifestyle of your dreams, let's build together. Let's lock in and see how we can, build together.
So, well, I definitely will have all the information in the show notes, all the links to all the different ventures he has going on, the products that he has going on with the Melanin Money movement. A great interview. You guys make sure you follow him, make sure that you support what he has going on because he's building some great things. But next episode, we will have Rashana back, and looking forward to more dope conversations. My name is Charles Oglesby. We'll definitely have all the information inside of the show notes, have everything. We need ratings and reviews. So don't just rate and review it. Also subscribe. Subscriptions matter. Share it with your friends and family. We're giving out a ton of game. And we're changing the world with this information. So that's it for this episode, and we're signing off.
Awesome.
Oh, all right, man. I'm not sure how many